Way back in 1908, decades before the world had even heard of fascism, Jack London wrote a novel that, looking back, feels like one of literature's most chilling prophecies. Today, we're diving into The Iron Heel and its terrifyingly accurate vision of a totalitarian future. And that really is the big question, isn't it? How on earth could a story from the very beginning of the 20th century lay out the playbook for tyranny with such startling accuracy? Was Jack London just making a wild guess? Or did he see something fundamental about power that we're still wrestling with today? All right, first things first, what exactly is the Iron Heel? When London uses that term, he's not talking about a single dictator. No, he's describing an entire system, a ruthless oligarchy, a cabal of corporate trusts that seize absolute control to protect their wealth and power at all costs. Now, what makes this novel so unique is how it's told. It's not a straightforward narrative. Instead, London frames the whole thing as a historical document, a lost manuscript, discovered 700 years in the future, long after the tyranny of the Iron Heel has passed. It's like we're reading a history book from a more enlightened age, looking back on a dark period of oppression. In our guide through this brutal history is a woman named Avis Everhard. She starts out completely sheltered from the real world's problems. She's smart, she's comfortable, and she's living in the cushy, elite world of academia. Honestly, she's the absolute last person you'd expect to become a revolutionary. So what happens? How does this woman of privilege end up as a key player in a revolution? Well, it all kicks off at a dinner party, of all places. One single guest shows up and proceeds to completely demolish her entire understanding of the world. That guest is Ernest Everhard, and he is the total opposite of everyone Avis has ever known. He's not a professor, not a banker. He's a former horseshoer, a self-taught intellectual, and a passionate socialist. And he has absolutely zero time for the polite, fake conversations of high society. He's there to speak the truth, no matter how ugly it gets. And Ernest doesn't just argue with theories. He hits them with cold, hard facts. He tells Avis about a factory worker named Jackson whose arm was shredded by a machine. What did he get for his trouble? He got fired, with nothing. The owners told Avis they couldn't put a premium on carelessness, and the newspapers? They wouldn't touch the story, of course. For Avis, hearing this, it just shatters her reality. This is Ernest's core message, the line that really defines the whole book. He forces Avis to see that her comfortable life, the money that pays for her nice dresses, it's all directly connected to the suffering of people like Jackson. There's no clean money. Everyone in the ruling class, whether they admit it or not, has that scarlet stain on their hands. Okay, so with Avis's eyes now wide open, Ernest starts to lay out the intellectual framework for the revolution. He's not just some angry guy shouting. He's got a detailed, almost scientific breakdown of the society they live in. And he makes a really crucial distinction here. When people accuse him of stirring up class hatred, he pushes back. He says that's not the point. The class struggle, he argues, is just a fact. It's an inevitable law of social development, like gravity. It's a natural conflict between the interests of those who own everything and those who do all the work. He sees this struggle as part of a bigger evolutionary process. Society, he argues, is always moving away from competition and toward combination. You start with individuals competing. Then small groups like weavers combine. Then you get huge combinations like factories and trusts. For Ernest, the final logical step is the biggest combination of all, socialism, where society itself runs the show. He sees it as just inevitable. And this chart, using numbers from London's own time, really shows you what's at stake. You've got less than 1% of the population, the plutocracy, at the top, controlling almost everything. Then you've got the huge majority, over 70%, the proletariat, and stuck right in the middle is a shrinking middle class. And Ernest has a pretty grim warning for that middle class. He calls them machine breakers, like the old weavers who tried to smash the factory looms that were putting them out of business. He's saying that the small business owners trying to compete with the massive trusts are fighting a losing battle. They can't stop progress, and they're doomed to be crushed between the giants above and the masses below. So what happens when Ernest and the socialists actually start getting some traction, when people start listening to their arguments? Well, the plutocracy, the oligarchy, decides that the whole democracy thing was a nice game while it lasted, but it's over now. They stop pretending, and the Iron Heel comes down hard. And this is where London's predictions get seriously eerie. The Oligarchy's playbook reads like a how-to guide for 20th century authoritarians. They don't just argue back, they systematically dismantle the opposition. They shut down the press, they pass secret laws to give the state more power, they bankrupt their enemies, and they use their own newspapers to paint anyone who disagrees with them as a dangerous radical. But this next move is maybe the most brilliant and cynical tactic of all. The Iron Heel knows it can't fight the entire working class at once. So it doesn't. It finds the most powerful unions in transportation, steel, industries like that, and it essentially bribes them. It gives them better pay, better hours, special treatment. It creates a loyal labor caste, an upper crust of workers who now have a reason to help the oligarchy keep the rest of the working class in line. It's a classic divide and conquer. So where does this all lead? How does it end? Well, to understand the novel's final, chilling message, we have to go back to that framing device, the story within a story that I mentioned at the beginning. Remember, the story we've been reading is Avis's own personal account of the revolution and the rise of the Iron Heel. But here's the twist. Her manuscript is incomplete. It just stops mid-sentence. And through footnotes added by the historian from the future who found it, we learn the horrifying truth. The Iron Heel's reign of terror lasted for 3 centuries. The revolution failed, and humanity was plunged into a dark age for 300 years. What London was really describing, in the end, were the timeless mechanics of power. How a powerful few can use the media, the law, and money to crush dissent and hold on to control. And that leaves us with a pretty haunting question. Was the Iron Heel a prophecy of a future that actually came to pass in many ways? Or is it a permanent warning about a struggle that never, ever really ends?